Hi guys, welcome to For Those Who Code. In this video, we'll be learning how we can create our own Mern stack authentication with MongoDB, Express, React, and Node using JSON Web Tokens, commonly known as JWT. For reference, you can find the link to the GitHub repository down below. This video will be divided in two parts. Part 1 will be covering our backend on how we can create login and sign up a new user, and in the second part we'll be covering front end on using React by consuming APIs we created. So let's get started. Before we begin, I want to make ourselves clear on how secure authentication system work with JSON Web Token. The image credit goes to TopTel. 1. A client makes the API call and sends the user information such as username and password to the web server. 2. Unsuccessful authentication, a web server generates a string-based token. And 3. Returns to the client system. A client can store this particular token in the browser local storage or in a session. 4. A client sets this token in the header, which looks something like what do we see here. So this particular website is a JWT.io. So I recommend you to go through the introductions of JWT, and also there are a lot of contents like payload, header, signature. If you don't know about JWT, on the next API call, JWT token communicates with the server. 5. After the successful verification. 6. The server returns the response to the client. So this is the general JWT authentication, how it works between the browser and the server. So let's go into our VS Code, and then first of all, let's start creating a project. I'll make a directory and call it full Mern auth and press enter, and inside here let me first initialize our package.json file with yarn in it. So I will bring up my desired packages and list the packages that I want to add beforehand into our project. So let's also open up the folder that we created. Now let's also add node1 beforehand, add it as a dev dependency. It would be node1 to listen to our changes that we do inside our project. So we'll also bring in node1. We are pretty much done with adding our packages. Now let's move on to creating our folder structure first. First of all, let's create server.js. Inside our server.js file, we will firstly import Express. So let's add a const Express as equal to require Express. We will also create another constant and name it app, and then we will initialize app.use Express, and we'll make the use of express.json as well. And then for now we can go into, I think we have pretty much a bit of space there. So for now we will just have a demo. So we'll add a slash and it takes request and response as its parameter, and then we can send down the response.send with hello coders. So now let's write app.listen to listen to our port. So port, we haven't defined our port yet, but we will define it soon. So first of all, let's console.log and some template literals and add your application is running import. So and then I think we are pretty much done with our writing our initial lines of code to start our server. So we can also define port, which is initially, let's say it's 8080. So we can just start our server and the JS. So yeah, we are pretty much fine. So now let's move ahead and add some folder structuring ahead. So first of all, let's make a folder and name it client. We will add some React code inside our client, and also we can add a config folder where I don't know what's happening, but I'm typing it everything wrong. So it's a config file where we can add our configuration files, and we can also add a middleware where uh, we need to check the authentication between the routes as well. And let's also add a model. So models so that we can have our some kind of data model right there. And we also need another is routes. So routes and models, middleware, config, and client. I think we're pretty much okay till now. And let's go ahead and create some sub files inside our folders so that it becomes easy to structure first. For the client, we will come back to it later because it would be some code with create React app. And for the config, we can add our .env file right here as well. So we can name config.env right here as well. We will have our environment variables here. So so I think it doesn't support backslash comments, but anyway, I will add another file and call it db, so that we can create our connection string for our database right here. And then let's move on to middleware, and inside middleware we'll make a file and name it auth.js, where we can add our auth middleware inside here. And then inside models we'll models, sorry, models. So inside here we will have our basic data modeling part where we can for now write users.js. So we will only be dealing with the users, and inside our routes we can add a new file and name it auth.routes.js, so that we won't be like confused with middleware auth and the routes auth. So we have a unique naming convention here so that we won't get confused ourselves as well. Auth route. So I think for the users, uh, user data model, and then database and config and server and packages. I think we're pretty much fine with our folder structuring and files. Let's go ahead and create our .env files, and we'll have our connection string of our database as well. So inside our config files, we can add some environment variables here. So first of all, let's define our first variable and call it node.env. So env. So it is the development environment that we are currently on. So I wrote development, and we'll be working on port 8080, and we'll also have a Mongo URI, which is the connection string that we will have from the database. So we'll be using MLab as our database because it will be in the cloud. So we won't be using a lot of local database. So inside our db.js, let's first, create a constant and call it mongoose. So we have already, installed mongoose library, and create another constant and call it connectDB, and where we will connect our database, where it would be some asynchronous action, and we will make the use of that arrow where we can first make a try block, and inside our try block we will create another constant and name it connect, and then await for it, and we will have a connection string here, and we will take our connection string from process dot env dot mongo URI, which we created, pass down an object where we have something like a new URL parser true. Actually, these should be passed down as an object as per the Mongo's and Mongo documentation. So use create index, which is also true, and then finally we can also add use unified topology, which is also true, and then we can further move on to printing out console.log and letting us know that the MongoDB has been connected, right? And we'll also take the port that we are currently on, and we'll also add a catch block where if there is some error and we need to console log that one as well. So it would be error, and we would also print down the error message with error.message, and we will stop everything that's running with process.exit and pass down one here. And then I think we need to export our module as well, and then choose connectDB. So I think we are pretty much fine with our config of database. And now let's move ahead and create our data modeling part inside our models. So users. So inside here, first of all, let's create a constant and import our mongoose. And we will also create a schema, and then mongoose.schema. We'll create another constant and name it unique validator, and require this one as well. And now we will create our first schema. Inside here, we can have name, email, and password for our sign in and sign up. So let's add name, and the type is obviously it's a string, and then required is true. We need to have that. So that's a Boolean property. So we'll also add email to this as well, and inside here it's also a type of string, and then unique, it should be unique, so unique is true, and then we also need to require this as well. This is also required. So let's add a password. So inside here it's obviously it's a string as well, and we need to have this as well. Now what we need to add is we need to name the collection. So the collection we will be creating will be users inside our database, and then we'll also make the use of the plugin which is called unique validator that we haven't used yet. So user schema plugin, and we'll pass down the unique validation, and then we'll write a message where if the email is already exists, we would print email already exists. So it's pretty much fine for now, and we'll ultimately export our model. I think we are pretty much done with our data modeling part as well. So now let's move ahead and add some configuration to our database. So before that, I would like to go to mlab and log in first. So let's create a new database from scratch. And then for now, we can select on the free plan, which gives us around 4.5 GB of free space. So we will call it Auth Mern, and then continue. And then everything is free to submit our order. It needs a couple of seconds to do it. So we all need is a connection URI. So for that one, let's click on this one. And then as you can see here, we already have it ready. So for that one, we will first create a user and call it username, and then database password. We have successfully created our user, and let's copy this particular connection string that we have here, which tells us we need a user and a database password as well. So we will paste this stuff right here, and for now we will replace it with our database name and password. For now the password is visible, but I will later on delete this particular database. And then I think that's pretty much fine for now. Let's close on this one, and we can move ahead to our probably routes, and we can create our additional routes here. Let's first import express inside our auth route. So const express is equal to require express, and we will also make the use of router provided by the express framework. And we also need to import our user schema that we created inside our models and users. So user schema, let's implement a sign in, and for the sign in we will make the user of the router and from our express framework, and we will hit on the post request for this one, and we'll be pasting the route and call it sign in user, and we will check request response and next parameter, and then create a fatter function. And first of all, let's check whether we can find the email or not. For that, we can let get user schema dot find one. It is some method that is provided by Mongoose. So email request dot body dot email. So inside our request object, we will make the access of request dot body dot email, so that we get the email from our request object, and then we will have our user. Suppose there is no user, then we will return the status of voucher1, and we will also parse it to the JSON file, and the message that we would give is auth field, right? So that's for this one. If there is get user, is equal to user, then we should return I think in this one let's also import decrypt. Here we will compare the password that we have. So dot compare, and inside our request dot body dot password, the request object where we send down our password, and it needs to compare between the user dot password. And then what can we do next is we can callback function, and then we can, if there is no response, if we don't get any response from the function above, or let's say we don't get any response after we compare the two passwords, then we may send down the status code of forger 1, and we will send also the message for authentication failed. Response dot send, or I think let's status, and status would be forger 1, and we'll also pass the JSON file, and inside here we can also send down a message where we say auth failed, right? So now let's move on to if if the auth is successful. So let JWT token is equal to JWT dot sign, where email is get user dot email, and then user ID is get user dot ID ID, and we'll also set the expiry time to let's say about 2 hours, and then after 2 hours our token would expire, and response dot status would be a success, which is 200, and we will also pass down our JSON object, and there would be a token where which is the JW token right here, and then we can also send down expiration, and then the message is get user. So after this one, what we can now do is we can we have added our callback. Now let's add a catch block where we can catch errors. Inside here we can return response to the status of forger 1, sorry, forger 1, and then the JSON would be message there are a lot of callbacks going on, but you could still write this with modern JavaScript as well. Hopefully I will refactor all of this to a modern JavaScript and push it to a different branch as well. I think we haven't imported our auth routes here, so we also haven't connected database yet as well. So let's import our connectivity that we created before inside here. So which is exported right here. So we will import our connectivity right here, import connectdb and require now. Let's also import .env, where we will require .env as well, and we will make the use of .env config, .env.config, and inside here we can add our path of our .env config file, which is config.env. So and now let's also invoke the connectdb as well right here, which is already imported. And then the next thing that's required is we also need to make the use of course. So const course require course. So let's also use the course app.use course, and then now express app.user. Now let's use our route that we created, which is the auth route, which is this one right here, and we will test out our post endpoint to sign in user. So app.use, sorry, app.use, and then we'll add API /auth, and it would be the auth route. Before that, I think the auth is also needs to be imported. Const auth is equal to require routes auth dot routes. I think we have crashed our server, so let's check what's wrong. Router.use. I think we haven't exported our module here as well. Module.export, and it's router. It should be URI, not URL. So I think we're pretty much fine, and our database is successfully connected to MLab. So let's go ahead and test our first endpoint of sign in, and in the response what we got to receive is we should get the response of this particular object right here, token expires in and message, which is get user. So which is get user, which is the user itself. So I think let's test it out. For that one, I have already started Insomnia. Yeah, so I think we don't have any users in the database. So for that one, we will also add sign up endpoint as well, so that we will first create our user and then check whether it's the email is already there, and we'll also try to compare the passwords as well. So for the sign up, what we can do now is
we can first add router.post. We'll be posting down ultimately the object of name, email, and password. And for that one, we'll hash our password and save that password to our database. So post and register, and then where we will take request, response, and next as our parameter and create an error function there. And then for now, if we have received our, the object of name, email, and password, we need to decrypt and hash our request.body.password, request.body.password, and then give it a salt of 10. And if you don't know salt, I suggest you to go with some articles online to learn about salt in JWT. So let's make a constant and create a user where we have the new user schema, and here we can create a new object with name, which is request.body.name, and email would be request.body.email, and password we need to hash it. So dot hash, because we added a parameter of hash here. So make the use of that one, and then now we can call that particular user and save it into our database, right? So dot save is provided for us by Mongoose, and in response, we can send down response to the status of 201, and we'll also parse it to the JSON file, and we'll send down the request, the message as user created, right? And also we will also send down the result object, result, and we'll send the response as well. So I think it's pretty much fine. Let's after all create a catch block where we will add response.status of 500, and then we'll pass the JSON, and we will also return the error object, which is error. I think this one will be fine. Error. I think we're pretty much fine for now, and we have created our sign up endpoint and also the other endpoint. So let's test this out in Insomnia. So sign up first. Let's register the user. Register. We'll hit on the post request. Register with name, email, and password. So we need to add on name, where I can add coder. So let's send our post request to register route with name, email, and password. And here we get the response message as user created. So if we take a look at MLab, we would see user object, and that's into the document of MLab, and here it is. Our user has been created. So now let's move ahead and test our endpoint for our sign in user. And for that one, what I want to do is I want to copy this particular object and take it as a backup for now. So sign is sign in. Okay, sign in, and it's already obviously a post request, and we need is just the email and the password for the sign in. So yeah, it's pretty much that's it. And then let's hit our server and let's see what happened. Authentication failed. It's really surprising to see that we don't have a JWT imported. Uh, that's a blunder mistake. Okay, fine. I think it would be pretty much fine for now. And here we have the token. And I think we have pretty much completed our sign in and sign up and tested with Insomnia. Also, make the use of our new middleware. We haven't made the use of our auth middleware as well. So we'll add our middleware and check our endpoints with Express Validator. So for our auth middleware, what we can do here is we can create a constant and JWT require JSON web token, and we will export the module.exports and request response and next. And then here what we can do is request response and next, and create Faraday function where we'll have our try block, and inside here we can first create a constant and name it token, where we will have our token which comes inside our header, header, and x auth token, and then we can verify that one dot vi verify the token, and then we'll add next because it needs to execute the other function that's in the pipeline or that's in the thread. So we will have error, sorry, if we will have error, then we will catch the error and send down the response of response dot status of Fujer1, and then we can also have our JSON where message. So I think we are pretty much done with our middleware. So now let's delete our JWT right here, and instead of importing that particular stuff, I think we can import our authorize middleware that we created, right? For now, let's make the use of JWT as well, because JWT is imported in this module and also in this module. Anyway, we will make the require our authorize that we created. Middleware. Okay. There was a spelling mistake. Anyway, now let's create a dummy endpoint so that we can make the use of our middleware, middleware that we created. So for testing it out, I will add on another endpoint and call it router dot route. So we will get all the user that we have in our database here, and with the dot get, and then we can add up our variable called authorize, and then we can make the use of request and response that we have as well. So inside here we can check whether we have our user schema have the JSON files, JSON object ready for us. So inside here we can make the user error and response, where we will, if have errors, then we can return next, and then if not, then response.status would be a success, and we will send down our parsed JSON object, and we will send down our response as well. I think all user.get is not a function. I think I have misplaced some brackets over here. So I think we're pretty much fine. We added a route and call it /all user, and we added our auth middleware right here, which we imported right here, and we'll go ahead and test this one out as well. So for this one, we have already received a token, so we will make the copy that particular token, and we will go to our all user route, where we will hit on all user, which is a get request, and inside the header we will add our token that we have inside our headers. We call it authorization header, and password, email, and name, and send down our no token cannot authorized. So we have created actually 3 users. As you can see, inside our collection there are 3 documents inside our collection. So if we click on that one, then we can see user 1, user 2, and user 3. So Coder, Ben, Jane, and Jane 22. So now we'll try out with our middleware route, where we get all the users, and we also passed our authorized middleware here. So we will go into our all user dot get. So we will this down with all user, and we will get, and we will pass down the header of our previous uh, authorization token that we received right here, and then we can now send down the get request. And as you can see, we get the 200 success message with our 3 users, Quarterpen, Jane, and Jane 22, which is what we have exactly into our MLab, which is Quarterpen, Jane, and Jane 22. I think we are pretty much done with our authenticating new users, signing up new users, and protecting our route to our all users route. So I will add some minor validation that we have using the Express validator, and you can also find the code in the GitHub link down below. So guys, I hope you got some initial ideas on making your own backend authentication with Mongo Express and Node. In the next video, we'll be using React to consume these APIs in our front end. So thank you so much for watching my videos. If you guys want to learn more about design and development, please like, share, and subscribe with a click down below, and please support me. I will try to make more better videos like this. See you in the next one, guys.